I was sitting at my desk this morning just staring at the Google product page for all their new AI stuff. And I have to say, I felt this very specific kind of exhaustion. I'm looking at this whole landscape, trying to see the strategy, and it doesn't really look like a product lineup. It looks like a labyrinth.
Oh, it is absolute chaos. I mean, if you're just trying to get up to speed now, good luck. You're staring at Gemini, Gemma, Nano, Jules, Opal, Vertex, AI Studio, NotebookLM. I mean, I could probably keep going.
Right.
I think I'd run out of breath before I actually finished the list.
And the source material we're diving into today, it points out something really crucial right at the top. Google has over 30 different generative AI tools. They overlap, the names are constantly changing. It confuses the experts, not just, the beginners. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling overwhelmed, or like you missed the memo somewhere.
It is not a skill issue. That's maybe the most important thing to hear. It's a clarity issue. It's on Google's end.
So let's try to unpack this. Our mission today is not to just do a feature dump. We're not going to read you a manual. We want to build a kind of mental model for this whole ecosystem. We need to figure out which tools actually matter for the work we do and which ones are, frankly, just noise.
Exactly. We need to stop looking at 30 tools and start seeing like 5 buckets. The best way to organize this whole mess is to categorize it. So you've got the core, then the Swiss Army knives for productivity, then the developy tools.
Okay.
Which has this really interesting lab versus factory thing going on. Then there's the future stuff in labs, and finally this invisible layer.
I like that structure. Okay, so let's start at the center, the core. This is the Gemini ecosystem. Now, I think most people, they open Gemini, they type in a prompt, and they think, okay, this is Google's version of ChatGPT. But the source suggests that's kind of the wrong way to frame it.
It is. It totally is. If you treat Gemini like just another chatbot, you're missing its actual superpower. The source material really highlights that Gemini, especially the free version, shines as a research engine. It's all about structure.
Can you give me a concrete example of that? What does that look like in practice? How is it different from just, asking for a list of things?
Sure. So let's say you want to understand the market for AI tools for freelancers. If you ask a standard chatbot, you'll get a bulleted list. Here's tool A, here's tool B.
Right, I've seen that a million times.
But if you ask Gemini, it's much, much better at mapping the categorization of that market. It'll break it down by workflow admin, creative, legal, and it'll explain why those categories matter. It builds a framework for you instead of just handing you facts.
So it's helping you think, not just giving you an answer. It's almost like a junior analyst who organizes the data before they hand it over.
That is a perfect way to put it. Yeah. It's distinct from just pure generation.
Okay, so that's the free version. But the source makes a really big deal about Gemini Advanced. And specifically, this idea of the context window.
This is the game changer. We are talking about a 1 million token context window.
Okay, let's pause on that. 1 million tokens. For anyone listening who doesn't speak engineer, what does that actually mean in, human terms?
Think of it as memory, like short-term working memory. Most models, they forget what you said 10 minutes ago, or they can only read a short article before they, lose the thread. A token is basically a piece of a word. 1 million tokens is roughly 700,000 words.
That is massive? That's what, multiple novels?
It is massive. You can upload 30 competitor blog posts or entire books or a huge stack of legal documents, and you can ask questions against all of that data at the same time.
That's fascinating. It's like having an analyst who has perfectly memorized a specific library of books you just handed them.
And it completely changes your workflow. This is what I mean about moving away from chat. You're not asking for a haiku or an email draft anymore. You're doing gap analysis. You're saying, here are 20 articles my competitors wrote. Tell me the one argument that none of them are making.
That's a really powerful distinction. You're not using the AI to write. You're using it to synthesize.
Synthesize is the word. Exactly.
Yeah. There's another part of this core stack mentioned, though, and that's search. The AI overviews, we've all seen this, where the answer just appears in the top of Google now. The source calls them zero-click searches.
Right. And if you're a content creator or you run a business that depends on SEO, this is, it's both terrifying and exciting. You aren't just writing for keywords anymore. You're writing so that the AI understands you well enough to summarize you.
It makes me wonder then, if the AI has this perfect memory, this 1 million token context, and it can summarize the whole internet, does having that change how we actually think about doing our work?
Totally. You stop summarizing and you start synthesizing massive data sets instantly.
Right.
The value shifts from I found it to I connected the dots.
That summary versus synthesis idea is key. Okay, let's move to that second layer you mentioned, the Swiss Army knives, the productivity layer.
This is where it gets really practical. And we have to talk about NotebookLM.
I've heard this one mentioned so many times, but the source says it's the most misunderstood tool in the entire lineup. Why is that?
Because people look at it and they think, oh, it makes podcasts or it summarizes docs, and it does do those things. But the killer feature, the thing that makes it unique, is grounding.
Grounding. Define that for us.
Grounding means NotebookLM does not look at the open internet to answer you. It only looks at the documents you gave it. It basically puts on blinders.
So it refuses to hallucinate.
Exactly. And hallucination is just the polite term for when an AI makes things up, because it doesn't know the answer, but it still wants to be helpful. NotebookLM won't do that. If the answer isn't in your source material, it just won't invent one.
That's actually pretty rare, because usually these models are trying to be these helpful, creative partners. They want to give you an answer, even if they have to fudge it.
Precisely. So if you're a lawyer or a researcher, or maybe you're studying for a med school exam, you don't want creativity. You want accuracy.
Yeah.
You want a tool that's willing to say, I don't know, instead of lying to you.
Trustworthy over creative.
Yeah.
I think that's a trade-off a lot of us would make for serious work. Speaking of consistency, the source also brings up gems.
Right. Gemini Gems. These are basically roles or agents you can save.
I have to admit, and this is a bit of a vulnerable thing to say, but I still wrestle with prompt drift myself. I'll get a prompt working just perfectly, and then 2 days later I type it just slightly differently and get a totally different result. It drives me crazy.
That is exactly what gems are built to solve. You basically save the prompt as a kind of persona. So you can have a proposal writer gem. You don't have to explain all the rules every single time. You just open that gem, and it already knows the tone, the format, all the constraints. It's all about repeatability.
And then there's Opal. This one sounds new to me.
Opal is the lightweight automation tool. Think of it like a very, very simple Zapier, but it's only for the Google ecosystem.
So like if I get an email with an invoice, put it in a specific doc.
Exactly that. Or summarize this new Google Doc and email it to my boss. It's for the non-technical person who just wants to connect two Google things without learning to code.
So going back to NotebookLM for a second. If it refuses to invent facts and it's strictly bound to the source material, is it actually creative at all?
Maybe not creative in an artistic sense, but it's the only one that's trustworthy. Yeah. And in a world of infinite AI-generated junk, trust is becoming the most valuable currency there is.
That's a really good point. Okay, let's shift gears to the builders, the developer tools, because this seems to be where the landscape gets even more fragmented.
Yeah, and this is where we see that lab versus factory distinction really clearly.
Explain that.
Okay, so you have AI Studio. The source describes this as the lab bench. This is where you go to prototype things. You want to test a new prompt. Go to AI Studio. You want to see if the newest model is any smarter. AI Studio, but you don't build a business there. It's a sandbox.
And the factory.
That would be Firebase Studio. That's where you have databases, authentication, user logins. That is where you build the real app that you actually ship to customers.
I see. So AI Studio's for the idea, Firebase is for the product. And then we've got these coding tools with these really sci-fi names. Anti-gravity. Jules.
Jules is fascinating. It represents a shift from helping me code to doing the code for me. It's an agent. You tell Jules, hey, refactor the entire authentication system, and it just goes off and tries to do it.
Yeah.
You're delegating, not just typing faster.
But the source material is surprisingly honest here. It compares Google's tools to things like Cursor and Claude. And it's not exactly a glowing review for Google.
No, it doesn't pull any punches. It says pretty straightforwardly.
Yeah.
Right now, if you're doing complex coding, Cursor paired with Claude is better. It's just faster. It's more mature.
So Google's playing catch up.
In the dev environment, yeah, for sure. But they have the data and the scale, which is their big advantage.
So that really begs the question, why would anyone invest time in Google's dev tools right now if something like Cursor is faster? Why learn a tool that's currently second best?
It's a long game. Google's whole thesis is integration. Eventually, having your database, your authentication, and your AI all in one ecosystem, that might just beat the fragmented, best-in-class approach. They're betting on scale.
The long game. Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme with all of this. Okay, we've covered the core, the productivity tools, the dev stack. Now let's look at the crystal ball. Google Labs.
Ah, I love labs. This is the experimental playground. The source says you should watch this space not because the tools are perfect, but because they show you where the ship is steering.
One of the tools mentioned is called Pomelli. It analyzes business DNA. What's that?
This is so cool. So instead of you telling the AI, write in a professional but friendly tone, Pomelli scans your website. It looks at your fonts, your copy, your layout, and it extracts the vibe. Then it writes copy that actually sounds like you. It's way better than a generic persona prompt because it's based on your actual data.
And then there's something called Gen Tabs,
Wow.
which sounds kind of chaotic.
Or brilliant, depending on how your brain works. It takes all those open browser tabs, when you have 20 tabs open doing research, and it turns them into an interactive dashboard. It's like an instant app made out of your browsing session.
But these are just experiments, right? They could kill them off next week. I mean, Google is famous for that. So is it really worth using tools that might just disappear?
Yes, but not for the utility today. You use them to spot patterns for tomorrow. If you use Gen Tabs, you start to realize, oh, in the future, websites won't just be static pages, they'll be dynamic dashboards. You're training your intuition.
So you're seeing the ghost of a future product.
Exactly.
All right, let's move to the fun stuff. Creative and media. The wow factor.
This is where Google has been quietly solving some really massive problems.
The source brings up Nano Banana, which is a great name, by the way. I'm assuming it's not about fruit.
Incredible name. But the tech behind it is even better. It basically solves the morphing problem in AI images.
Right, because usually you generate a character and then you try to generate them again in a different pose, and they look like a completely different person. It's impossible to make a comic book or a storyboard that way.
Exactly. Nano Banana locks the character's consistency. You can edit the image, change the background, change the pose, but the person still looks like the same person.
That's huge.
That is the difference between a toy and a production tool.
And then there's the V3 video model.
This one just blew my mind. It generates video with dialogue and audio.
Whoa, hang on. So we're not just talking about a silent clip of a dog running on a beach.
Yeah.
We're talking about characters actually speaking.
Yes. Imagine generating a full film where the characters look the same in every single shot, thanks to that Nano Banana tech, and they talk with synchronized lip movements.
That's the dream, isn't it? That's the whole Hollywood-in-a-box idea we've been hearing about for years.
And Google calls the workflow for combining all this stuff flow. They're really trying to make it a seamless studio experience.
It feels like we are right on the edge of this being usable for actual work. So does this consistency, the Nano Banana stuff, does that finally make AI art a real production tool?
Absolutely. It moves from a cool demo to a usable asset.
Right.
If you can't control the output, you can't use it for work. Google is solving the control problem.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the layer we don't really see, the invisible layer.
This is the stuff that you don't open. It just happens.
Like Gemini Nano.
Yes, which is confusingly named, but Gemini Nano runs on your device. It's on your phone. It doesn't go out to the cloud.
Why does that matter? I mean, why should I care if the AI is on my phone or in some server farm in Oregon?
Two big reasons: privacy and speed. If it's on your phone, Google doesn't see your data. And because it doesn't have to travel to a server and back, it's instant. It's what powers things like smart replies or on-device summaries.
And Project Astra?
Astra is multimodal.
Okay, define multimodal for us.
It means it can see, hear, and speak all at once. Astra uses your phone's camera to see the world in real time. It's the AI looking at what you're looking at and understanding it. Like, where did I leave my keys? Astra saw where you put them down.
And then there's the Workspace integration. The source calls this the boring stuff, summarizing Gmail threads, formula help in Sheets.
Boring, maybe, but super high value. It just reduces friction. It solves the blank page problem. You open a Google Doc and the AI is already there offering to help you get started.
It makes me wonder, is the best AI the one we don't even realize we're using?
Yeah, when it just becomes a feature instead of a technology. We don't say, I'm using the spelling checker AI. We just say, I'm typing. That's where all of this is going.
It's just how the phone works.
Exactly.
So we've navigated the labyrinth. We've looked at the core, the tools, the dev side, the labs, the creative, and the invisible. Let's try to bring this home. What's the big idea here?
I think the big idea is that Google is playing a long game. The ecosystem is messy because they're essentially building it all in public.
So what's the strategy for the listener? If I'm sitting here, I have limited time, what do I actually do with all this information?
Don't chase all 30 tools. You'll just burn out.
Okay.
Focus on research. That's Gemini Advanced. Focus on grounding. That's NotebookLM. Those are your high-leverage tools. Keep one eye on labs to see what's coming next. And for everything else, use the best tool for the job. If Cursor is better for coding right now, use Cursor. Don't force loyalty to an ecosystem that's still under construction.
That makes a lot of sense. The source had a line that really stuck with me. It said, being early doesn't mean being perfect. It means building intuition.
I love that.
And I think that's the real challenge for everyone listening, right? Are you waiting for all these tools to be perfect before you jump in? Or are you training your intuition right now while it's all messy so that when it is perfect, you're already an expert?
That's the difference between consuming the future and actually helping to shape it.
Well said. See you in the deep end.